Apple is about to leak the iPhone 13, but not like that. We're starting to hear some rumbles about a new March Apple event that could introduce the new iPad Pro, the long-awaited AirTags, maybe some new AirPods, and maybe even an iPhone that we have not seen before. There are a couple of things in particular you need to really hone in on and pay very close attention to over the next couple of days and weeks, because what we could see from Apple very soon can give us a really good idea of what we can expect with the all-new iPhone 13 lineup coming really soon. And a huge thanks to our friends at Ting for sponsoring this video. So I know this might be a little weird, but I want to start this video about the iPhone 13 talking about this, the 2020 iPad Pro. Now look, I love the iPad Pro, I love what Apple's doing with the iPad lineup. We can all say nice things about the iPad all day, but I think we can all agree that this 2020 update that we got last March was not the biggest update the iPad Pro has ever seen. But what was super important about this March 2020 update to the iPad Pro was that it gave us a lot of hints and a lot of insight on what we could expect coming in the fall with the iPhone 12. Remember that at this point, we had heard rumblings about Apple possibly including a LiDAR sensor in future devices, and the iPad Pro was the first Apple device to get a LiDAR sensor, which made a lot of us believe that yes, this technology, because it was in a flagship iPad, was going to be making its way down to flagship iPhones, which it did with the iPhone 12 Pro and iPhone 12 Pro Max. It also gave us some insight into what Apple was planning to do with their own Apple Silicon. There were lots of other things like improved microphones, more RAM, kind of this reaffirmation of ProMotion and industrial design that all kind of added together gave us a good idea of what we could expect with the iPhone 12 and 12 Pro, because Apple devices do share a lot of the same DNA. Yes, they kind of vary from product category to category, but if you look at the entire Apple ecosystem as a whole, Macs, iPhones, iPads, they all share a lot of the same features and the same DNA. So what we could see from the next iPad can give us a really good idea of what's coming with the next iPhone. So there is a lot of interesting stuff to really focus in on at this March event that can give us a really good idea of what we can expect coming soon with future Apple products, specifically with the iPhone 13. And of course, we gotta start with the most obvious product first, AirTags, because it wouldn't be an Apple rumor video without talking about AirTags. Now, although we've heard about AirTags for a while, and there really isn't anything new to report about them, we've just been kind of waiting for them to kind of come out forever, there is a new piece of information that is really interesting and kind of backs up some earlier rumors we heard about the iPhone 12 and iPhone 12 Pro, that AirTags, or maybe at least one version of the AirTags, will be able to reverse wirelessly charge off the back of an iPhone. And this is now just kind of guessing here and kind of presuming that maybe it's able to kind of use and kind of harness the power of MagSafe to kind of magnetically click into the back of the iPhone and then reverse wirelessly charge that AirTag up, so you could then put it back in the bag or backpack and kind of give it a little bit more battery life, and you're able to kind of go about your business and know that it's charged. Now that is a really interesting theory and interesting idea, because if you remember, we had heard these long-lasting rumors for months now that the iPhone 12 and iPhone 12 Pro are actually capable of reverse wireless charging, but Apple actually software locked it off and is not allowing that to actually be a feature, but it is physically possible with the hardware inside of these phones. Now, of course, I gotta state the obvious. Although the iPhone 12 hardware could be capable of reverse wireless charging, there is a case to be made that Apple could reserve this as an iPhone 13 feature. So though the AirTags can do it, technically right now, it would only be kind of showcased and featured alongside the iPhone 13, as those are the only iPhones that can do this reverse wireless charging. I'm not sure how Apple's gonna do it. Maybe it's gonna be an iPhone 13 exclusive feature. Maybe they're gonna unlock it on the iPhone 12. I'm not sure how Apple's gonna play it, but either way, if they can actually do this, if they are capable of being reverse wirelessly charged, that could give us a good indicator of what we could see with the iPhone 13, and also a good indicator of what we could see with future AirPods. Maybe AirPods 3 and AirPods Pro can also be reverse wirelessly charged. Next, let's talk about the all-new 2021 iPad Pro models and what they can tell us about what Apple is working on for the next version of the iPhone. So we're not expecting Apple to do any huge design change or any real big cosmetic change to the iPad Pro, but the biggest rumor for this year's iPad lineup is going to be the move over to mini LED technology for the display. Essentially, it's going to give you as many of the benefits of OLED as possible without the drawbacks and the price of OLED. So you have a bright, beautiful, vibrant panel. You'd have the ability to have obviously ProMotion. It would look better, but you wouldn't have the costs and the drawbacks associated with going OLED, which would be really cool to see and should be a pretty significant update to the 11-inch and 12.9-inch version of the iPad Pros. Now, the iPhone 13 is not expected to get mini LED, but it is finally supposed to be getting the ProMotion display. Yes, this has been in the rumor mill for a while, almost as long as AirTags, it feels like, but the new iPhone 13, at least the iPhone 13 Pro, presumably, will have a ProMotion display built in. But Apple is kind of taking some DNA from the iPad Pro to do this, but they will be using different display technology. So the iPad Pro is going to be using mini LED, while the iPhone 13 series will be sticking with OLED, but will be adopting an LTPO display kind of backplane technology in order to make this variable refresh rate happen and make it as efficient as possible. But something that could be released with the iPad Pro that could sort of tip Apple's cards for the iPhone 13 could be the inclusion of an always-on display. This is kind of a crazy one and a wild one, but it's starting to make more and more sense the more we learn about the iPhone. So Apple could introduce this always-on display technology with the iPad, something that sounds a little crazy but could become reality, that would show things like battery life, it would show the time, maybe it would somehow show your notifications, and that could be a new hallmark feature of the iPad Pro. That would align pretty well with new rumors we're hearing from Max Weinbach on the iPhone 13 specifically, that's supposed to adapt an always-on display that'll allow you to see things like the time, the battery life, notifications, sort of like the Apple Watch. Before we continue talking about future iPhones, let's take a second to talk about the phone you have right now. Answer me this and be honest. When was the last time you really checked to see just how much mobile data you were using? And more importantly, when was the last time you checked to see how much you were paying for that mobile data and that cell service? There's a good chance you are definitely overpaying, and now is the time to switch over to Ting Mobile. Ting is just doing cell service the right way in 2021. You're not locked in any kind of contract, you've got access to fantastic nationwide LTE and 5G service, and best of all, access to award-winning customer service that is always there to help. One of the things I love most about Ting is that these plans are really custom built for you. You can check them out for yourself over at tac.ting.com. Maybe you're like me, pretty much home all the time, mainly using Wi-Fi and no need for any kind of big data cap. You're not gonna use all that data anyways. In that case, the Flex plan is gonna be perfect for you and I. It's unlimited calls and texts for just $10 a month and just $5 per gigabyte you use. Something else I really love about Ting is that it is super simple to make the switch. In most cases, you can keep your phone number, all the data on your phone. It's really just a matter of popping out the old SIM, putting in the new one that Ting is gonna send you, and you're up and running and good to go. But best of all, Ting has got a special promotion for Apple Circle viewers looking to give you a little bit more for making the switch. So if you visit tac.ting.com, you're gonna get $25 of credit for signing up. And depending on the plan you go with, that could cover half of the first month, if not the full first month, plus a little bit more, depending on the plan you choose to opt for. And if you just wanna kind of double check to make sure your phone is going to work on Ting, they've got an excellent tool on their website that'll help you check that in like 30 seconds. So now is the time to make the super simple switch over to Ting Mobile. Ditch those contracts, those sky-high bills, and get $25 of credit and full control over your mobile data and your cell service by making the switch to Ting. You can learn more and see all that Ting has to offer at the link down below or by visiting tac.ting.com. Another area to pay very close attention to on these new iPad Pros is going to be with the camera setup, specifically because we haven't heard a lot about what's supposed to be changing on the 2021 iPad Pro's camera, but we know what's supposed to be coming with the iPhone 13. So if we can kind of see sort of the rumors from the iPhone 13 start first on the iPad, that'll give us a really good idea of what to expect with the fall. So of course, last year we got the introduction of the LiDAR sensor. I would bet that any changes that come to that sensor will also follow suit down the road with the iPhone 13 lineup, with the iPhone 13 and iPhone 13 Pro, and also pay very special attention to the ultra-wide camera because that is rumored to be getting quite a significant update on the iPhone, and I wouldn't be the least bit surprised to see Apple start that on the iPad Pro this year, making that camera better, making it able to capture more light, and then would just bring that same technology down to the iPhone in just a couple of months. Portrait video is rumored to come to the iPhone 13 thanks to Max Weinbach, and we also could possibly see it on the iPad Pro. I mean, it makes sense since this already has the LiDAR sensor built in, even though it's kind of laughable to take pictures and videos with an iPad. A lot of people do it. They love that really big viewfinder. So it wouldn't be out of the question for Apple to sort of test that feature on the iPad, then bring it down to the iPhone. Portrait video, yay or nay? What do you think? We could possibly see that on the iPad. Also, a new astrophotography mode. That is supposed to be a big feature of the iPhone 13 that could also start on the iPad. Just point it up at the sky, get some nicer, longer exposure shots, some better software enhancements and better software processing, all done inside of the photo app and the camera app inside of iOS and iPadOS on these new devices. If they come to the iPad, which they could, it'd give us a good indication of what's coming with the iPhone, but I don't know if Apple wants to kind of spoil everything and give everything away before they get to the main event this fall. So just pointing it out, it could be there. Just keep a very close eye on that, and if we see it on iPadOS, there's a good chance it's coming to iPhoneOS in just a couple of months. Now, this next one is super interesting, and let me make it clear that we have not heard a lot of concrete rumors about this. The rumors actually on this have been very few and far between, but there is a chance, and it does make sense, that we could get an update to the iPhone SE at this March event. But not just any update. Maybe we could get a new incarnation for 2021 of the iPhone SE we saw last year, but more importantly, and something to get a little bit more excited about, is an iPhone SE Plus that could kind of drop the home button and the design of the iPhone SE we have now, look a little bit less like the iPhone 8 and a little bit more like the iPhone 11, and also be the first kind of modern iPhone to reintroduce Touch ID in a whole new way. Think of this more like an iPhone 11. It would not have an OLED display, it'd have a really nice LCD display. It wouldn't have a notch because there wouldn't be Face ID because that's more of a premium feature, but maybe it could introduce Touch ID in a new way. Maybe that would just be kind of the regular old home button we have with the smaller SE, or maybe we could see Touch ID return into the power button. We saw this on the iPad Air, and it would make a lot of sense to see on this iPhone SE Plus. Now, we know that the iPhone 13, all rumors point to that having an under-display Touch ID reader in conjunction with Face ID, but maybe that's more of a premium feature set that Apple wants to reserve for those higher-end phones. This iPhone SE would still have Touch ID, but built into the power button would be a great way to do it a little bit more cost-effective and not take away from that flash and that pizzazz of the higher end iPhones by kind of keeping Face ID and Touch ID just to those, but by still implementing something we haven't seen before on this iPhone SE Plus. And from everything we know about this so far, it seems like it's going to take a lot of the same DNA from the iPhone 11, the same way the iPhone SE took a lot of the DNA from the iPhone 8, basically almost a carbon copy with some internals changed. So you'd expect a 6.1-inch LCD display on this, you'd have 2 cameras on the back, a wide and an ultra wide, you'd have the latest Apple SoC inside, so the A14. It probably would not have 5G support, just limited to LTE, but the price could be maybe around $450, $500. Not sure where Apple could price this, and again, we're not sure if this could have Face ID or if it could have Touch ID built into the power button or not. I'm not sure, it's all speculation, but it would be a really interesting move from Apple that would once again kind of give us a really good idea of their direction. If they're starting to kind of implement Touch ID, going back to different iPhones and kind of setting the trend for what we're gonna see in the future with iPhones kind of coming in the next following months, then that could be a real clear indication of Touch ID coming back to the iPhone 13 in one way or another, probably under the display. So keep a very close eye on that. It's definitely the wild card of the event, but an iPhone SE Plus would be very, very cool to see. So what do you guys think of this rumored March Apple event? What are you most excited to see? Have you been holding out for a new iPad Pro? Have you been really waiting for AirTags and you're super excited to finally get them? Or are you just gonna sit back, relax, and analyze on what we could see from these different devices, on the hints and the secrets they give us with the iPhone 13 coming this fall? That's what you're really waiting for. I'm curious, let me know what you are most excited about and most excited to see down below. As always, thank you guys so much for watching the Apple Circle. We all sincerely appreciate it. I am Robert Rosenfeld, thank you for watching, and I'll see ya in the next one.